Hello, everyone. My name is Amaka Ibechi. I'm the founder of DPO African Network. We're excited for this month's edition of the Data Protection in Practice webinar. We are excited to be joined with our regulators today to discuss what it will mean for DPOs across the continent to excel in their role. Today, today's session will be moderated by our very own Alan from Zimbabwe, and he will be introducing the panelists. Before we get started, it's important as we begin to wrap up the year that I make some incredible announcement. As you all know, this community thrives on your energy, on your passion, and on your commitment. So if you want to put in the chat where you're joining us from, your LinkedIn URL, if you're open to connecting, that will be awesome. Already we have participants from Nigeria, from Zimbabwe, Botswana, Angola. It's amazing to see people joining from across the continent and even from Canada and the United States. So we are excited to be here live together, learning and also connecting one with another. However, it's important to know that as we all grow as individuals, we should grow collectively as a community. Because I always like to say that data protection is an ecosystem play. One organization cannot do it by themselves. We have to come together to do this. So as we approach 2026, of course, I know some people are already planning for 2026. Let's take a moment to serve as a reminder that our journey never stops. It is continuous. The regulatory landscape is changing, and we must adapt and continuously learn. A couple of resources that we have our courses now on demand. Please do well to check them out. I will put the link later on in the chat window. Also, we want to say a very big thank you to all our volunteers who have volunteered their time, their expertise to review our book, The Data Protection Foundation, that will be coming on soon. This is exciting news. And not just that, we are currently doing a number of corporate training. So if you want to train your employees on data protection and even AI governance, because our scope is expanding rapidly, please send us an email at info@dpoafrica.net. One interesting information is we've gotten tons of requests with regards to coaching. If you're interested in coaching, send us an email as well as we put together a coaching plan for 2026. The whole goal is that we succeed and excel together. At this point, I will make welcome our moderator who will be moderating today's event, and it's no other person but Alan. Please make welcome Alan. I'm bringing him on stage. Alan, you will introduce the panelists and take it away from here. Thank you all so much for joining. We do really appreciate you all. Alan. If you're speaking, Alan, you're on mute. Please.
Amaka, for having me today, and thank you to everyone who has joined us for this webinar today. And like what Amaka said, this is a monthly meeting where we meet and discuss the various topics. And today we're going to be discussing with the regulators in what you call the conversation with the regulator for the regulators from different countries. So I'm going to allow the regulators that are online. I understand Pedro is online. So I'm going to allow Pedro to introduce himself and talk to us briefly about his profile. Pedro, over to you, my brother.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Amaka, and good afternoon to everyone. Well, my name is Pedro, Paulo Pedro, actually. I work for the Data Protection Authority of Angola, where I'm a board member. And it's always a pleasure to be part of this network and to help this move forwards. Um, well, for the time being, this is all. Whoever wants to ask more about myself, I can tell you. So, thank you, Alan. Over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Pedro, for that warm introduction. So it seems like we're going to start the discussion with you only. I understand other panelists are still trying to join. I'm with Somalia on WhatsApp just now, where she says she'll be joining us very soon. But maybe we, for the sake of time, we'll just move ahead with the discussion. So I just wanted to ask you a question, Pedro. The question that the cliche could say, why data protection? Why now? Perhaps maybe you I wanted to share in the Angolan context why should data protection be a top priority for both the public and the private sector organizations? What recent events or trends make it urgent today from your from the regulatory perspective in Angola, or in from because I understand you've been doing a lot of touring and speaking on the international stage. Well done. So you can also share some insights that are coming from other countries as well.
Uh, well, Alan, let me start for saying that the Angolan data protection law is a 2011 law. However, however, our data protection authority was only established in 2019, October 2019. Um, why have we decided to establish the data protection authority? Because the government realized there was a gap into protecting people's privacy. During the 21st century, we realized privacy is not only a constitutional right, but is something that we will, especially those in technology, and not only because the law doesn't only apply to technology processing data, but normal mechanic data as well, data on paper, as long as it's personal data, the laws applies into it as well. So we realized there was a need to regulate how companies, here we call data handlers, for example, process or treat, collect, store, how they share people's data. Some used to say that data is the today's petroleum or oil, depending on whatever terms you decide. But I don't say that. I normally say data is a kind of an atomic bomb. If it's not handled according to the law, if it's not handled respecting someone else's privacy, uh, it can create a catastrophe. It can destroy companies, it can destroy peoples, it can destroy nations. For this reason, there must be a regulator to help freeing, stopping the misuse of people's information. We are not talking about companies' data here. To be very specific, we only talk about personal data. So if someone wants to handle my information, doesn't matter if it's being handled as a client or as an employee, it needs to be treated according to certain rules. And the first step is my consent. No one can handle my data if I don't allow them to do it. We have very few exceptions. We're talking about whenever we, let's say, in a healthy situation, that's to look after my own personal safety. When I'm unable to express this consent, of course, it can be dealt with. in cases where authorities, for security reasons, crime stopping, they need to, of course, by use of the courts or any judicial system can be handled also this data. Apart from that, especially for commercial use, I need to give my consent first. And in Angola, we have more than a consent. You need to have an authorization from the Data Protection Authority. You need to tell the authority, I process personal data for this reason. And the authority will look into it in saying which kind of personal data you you treat, for example. And if there is not excessive, um, of course, you will be allowed to deal or handle such kind of personal data. When I say you cannot use excessive data, I'll just give an example. You say you're applying for an employment, and then do you really think when applying for employment, is it fair for your employer to register, for example, your sexual orientation, your religious belief? Well, if employer is collecting this data, we need to ask why. Do you need this for such specific reason? Is it is there any specific reason? You need to convince us yes. Well, if not, of course, you're not allowed to have this kind of data for this kind of situation. These are the kind of controls the authority are used to. And of course, also to help our fellow citizens to pursue whenever they need help, a government help on, or the authority help on the cases where their personal data were being misused. They can launch initial complaint to the data handler. If they're not satisfied, the authority is here, of course, to help them solve the issue. Our fines, I would say, according to our region, I would consider they are very heavy fines the way they are. Our minimum fine is 60,000 US American dollars. But if you are a company, this goes to a triple the amount, or 180,000 American US. This is the kind of fine for that can close small business if they're not prepared. That's why our authority uses an approach more than awareness at one stage, discussing with companies, SMEs, discussing with big techs, making sure we are not the kind of authority that just want to issue fines, but to educate how this personal data can be in each specific situation dealt with. Well, Alan, I think I don't know if there is other panelists. If not, of course, we can still be here talking
Of
more.
course, of course, yeah. But you do mention very critical things that I did like, Pedro. I saw Amaka did put in the chat where you say, data is an atomic bomb. And I like it because when we talk about data, in my context, we are talking about it being the new gold. But I like this whole new aspect that you're bringing up with being an atomic bomb, whereby if it's not properly regulated, it can explode, and the explosion can really cause disastrous consequences for the citizens. That's why we have to have authorities that regulate there. And I was trying to make a follow-up question. You mentioned when you're describing the principles that govern the processing of personal information in Angola, it seems like there is a very similar contrast between the Angolan law and the general laws that are cutting across the world. Especially, for example, can you really say that the Angolan law did borrow from other jurisdictions in terms of its principles? Maybe from your perspective as one of the enforcers, do you draw many similarities? Because I could draw many similarities between what you're saying and what you have in Zimbabwe, where if you ought to have the consent, being the most appropriate legal basis, but the least applicable. Whereby sometimes what you can always learn consent where there's a legal obligation stuff. So maybe you can just share the light a bit on that one.
Well, I would say yes, we have many similarities with the GDPR, for example. Um, but the only difference is like you are required in Angola to have an authorization before you handle personal data. Most of the countries in Europe, they no longer require this. I think the UK, for example, still requiring this. But the reason we, for example, decided to keep it the pre-authorization from the authority is that our culture, our own personal culture, is not of privacy, is not at the stage that we can leave it to self-regulate themselves, for example. So this is the reason we decided we decided to keep the pre-registration, the pre-authorization beforehand of that. And you are right, Alan. It's like the consent is a major issue. Is a major issue, but partially because our own citizens, they are not fully educated yet. We have to keep doing our job in a way that each and every one of us requires. To say, well, I need to give you my consent before you enter my data. This is one thing. And the other issue is like, uh, let me give you an example myself. A couple of months ago, I went to a shop and I wanted to buy a CCTV camera to install at my property. And the lady at the till told me, okay, I need your phone number. I say, why do you need my phone number? Oh, I need your phone number to issue you an invoice. I said, well, I don't want to give you my phone number. I want to pay you. All I need is an invoice. And then I said, well, in this case, my system doesn't allow me to give you an invoice, or I cannot sell you your article. I said, no. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to pay you, and I'm not going to give you my phone number. Then she called the manager. The manager came up and starts with the same thing. And then I say, listen, are you aware of the data protection law? That I need to authorize, to give you consent to handle my personal data. Why do you need my phone number for?
Right.
And they were like, well, yes, I think we need to change the system. It's just to say that if people are aware that they have the right not to give the information, and they
Right.
need to know why is it being used for,
Mhm.
they are the first inspector. They will be the first inspector saying, okay, no, this is my data. I'm not going to give you my data.
Right.
And I still have the right to buy the service, the product. So, and then we have the one of the issues is like, okay, companies have data before the law start being applied.
Mhm.
And now they need to collect the consent to keep using that data.
Right.
And that is one of the big problems we're still having. And I say, well, the law have such many years, and the law says you have 2 years to comply.
Right.
We've been so many years down the line, and this is probably one of our first mistakes. Right? It's like you have a law from 2011, instead of start applying it in 2013, the authority only comes in 2019. I say, well, this guy,
Right.
they have
Yeah.
law,
Yeah.
but nobody to enforce the law.
Pedro, I just want to hold you there. I mean, you just said something very critical, and I will speak also as a regulator from Zimbabwe. It's something that I feel is cutting across the continent on the rise or on the awareness level of data protection rights amongst the people, because you were able to say, no, I don't want to give you my phone number because you work in this space. But do you think that the authorities and the DPOs on the continent are doing so much work to raise awareness, to make sure people are aware of their rights? I'll give you a quick story of a friend of mine who got a job at a new organization, and the organization was saying, "Can we have your payslip because we want to be able to know how much we're going to pay you?" Obviously, that's a privacy violation. So, from Angola, do you think that there's enough work that's being done, not necessarily by the Angolan authority, but just across the continent, on raising awareness on data protection rights amongst the people?
Well, let me first tell you the Angolan experience. We have a program. We have a program. As I say, our main focus was awareness from the beginning. Communicate with everyone. Communicate with other regulators.
Right,
Communicate with people. And we had a program we call here Prodip in Angola. We had this program that was like to educate public companies
right.
on data privacy.
Okay.
I would say like the one of the big issues, like, okay, authorities can enforce the private very easily, but sometimes the public companies, they're more resistant.
Mhm.
So we start educating them in a way for them to start not only respecting people's data, but also on the good practice on how to handle this data. Why collecting it, reasons, proper reasons, access levels, who can see what, and then storing, how you're going to store, for how long are you going to store, and why are you going to store. Do you really need this data? If you do need this data, be responsible. You don't need, please don't keep it. So this was one of the things very successful we had with the public company, public institutions. And then we have a series of workshops where we normally call various regulators, various specialists to talk about privacy, how to handle, and we are there. But one of our most successful stories in here are like we have a radio um, awareness program in the major radio stations in Angola,
Wow.
where we
Okay.
give normally many examples. We have one of the famous radio lists in Angola, in one of the most listened programs in the morning, with various example about the people. Let's say, for example, say, hey, listen, don't just go to a party and start getting pictures and put everyone on the social media because someone on that picture might not like it.
Right.
Let's say you are in a party, your wife doesn't even know you were there, and then
Right.
you were there in the
I know,
social media.
right?
You see, and with small, simple examples, people start
Right.
understanding what is a privacy. Because sometimes people are saying, "What are these guys? What is this privacy? I don't know."
Right. Yeah.
And so, what is privacy? I don't care. You say, okay, listen. One of the very uh, one of the examples I used to say is like um, we're still working on this anyway. It's
Right.
like we are used to since we're kids studying in Angola. For those who studied in here, we used to, at the end of your academic year, your results, you have all your notes in a board, everyone in your class, like, with your marks, and say whether you fail or you pass and how much, what was your marks. We are used, well, this is a culture. This is a culture that we got it from ever since independence. And
Right.
now he is the privacy regulator say, guys, you cannot put everyone's names on the board with his marks. So I say, why we can't do that? I say, well, you can't do that because that can create problems. Some kids, when they see the names and they fail in their marks, that it can cause problems, healthy problems for those kids that some specialists cannot, some people cannot understand. So we need to find ways to still informing people of how did they perform. Yeah, we are doing the
Yeah.
technology area,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Pedro, you're raising a very critical point. Were you following the South African case about matric results being displayed on the notice board, and the Data Protection Authority, the Personal Information Protector in South Africa, end up going to court? I don't know the outcome of the case on the merits, but I know that when they went to court saying it was an urgent case, that they wanted to interdict the Education Board, the High Court actually said the case was not that urgent. I'm not sure. Were you following that case? Because
No,
you're
I
raising a
didn't
very
follow, but you see, just much what was our worry. I didn't
right,
follow, and I will
right,
follow this now probably.
right,
But just to see how similar we did
mm,
think about it.
right,
And across the region, just as a follow up of your previous question, across the region, being in these meetings like the GPAs and and the NADPA, the African Network, we can realize that our our worries are the same,
right,
basically.
right, right,
Our worries are the same. That's why we need to work together. We need to
mm,
do a better work, and for this reason, the Angolan authorities is having many bilaterals agreement. We have many MOUs with some authorities. We have, for example, with Morocco. We have with Portugal. We have with Cape Verde or Cabo Verde. So we can exchange experience, exchange case studies, how to handle them, for example. And of course, one of the major issues like cross-border data. Uh, the European Union's call that adequate country, and this is a very polemic statement, to be honest, when you say, okay, you are considered an adequate country to process data, and we're
yeah.
still thinking, well, for us, the adequacy is assessed by us, by the authority.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh,
on
so
your
what happened? What happened when someone wants to do a cross-border data transfer? So they just notify you that you are going to take the data to Zimbabwe, and then it's the authority that then says that Zimbabwe has got an adequate level of protection as Angola, so it's okay for you to do the transfer.
Exactly. For us, we need to,
Okay.
because we look into very situation. Does the Zimbabwe has a data protection authority? Yes, it has a data protection authority. How effective is this authority?
Right. Okay.
It's not just an authority that has been established, but in the end, by history, we can realize that there is a massive uh, infringement of data protection laws, and no cases
Right.
of being company being fined, no cases of so we just say, well, we don't think that is an adequate country. That's how we access, and then the company might say, no, well, but my partner in Zimbabwe is let's say is a Portuguese company over there, and they also trade according to the GDPR regulation. So we do here as well. Even we do follow the Angolan law, but we still obliged to follow the GDPR regulation. Otherwise, we might have trouble. Then we have a different additional information to access that. I say, okay, yeah, I think here we have cases. So what is the agreement do you have with this? With this company, in case of a data breach, who is responsible? Is it joint, one side? Okay, are you transferring? Let's give an example. You want to open, you have a bank here, but you want to transfer or have your data centers somewhere else. What happens then if the situation goes wrong? How do you ensure that you're gonna have this data back
Yeah.
uh, unviolated? So all
Right.
these we take into consideration before we decide, yes, it is an adequate country or not.
Yeah. So I wanted just to ask Pedro. So in your country, when you do let down, when you, for example, us in Zimbabwe, what we've done is we have laid down we've come up with a guideline on the qualification, the duties, and the roles of a data protection officer. And one of the things that we've laid down is that it is one of the primary duties of a DPO to drive awareness in their own organization. So actually, when you're doing a complaints assessment, we want one of the things that you're going to check is that did you do a training? So at least once or twice a year, a DPO in an organization must carry out an internal training, whether either they hire someone from outside to come and do the training, or they do the training themselves in the organization. And is this something that you also look for the DPOs to do in Angola? And the second thing is that is having a data protection officer in Angola even compulsory? Because for us also in Zimbabwe, we have four categories of organizations. So for all organizations in tier number two going upwards, they must have a DPO if they're going to have a license, and as well as to say that those in tier number one, if they process sensitive data and healthy data, genetic data, they must have a DPO. So maybe you can just clarify on those two questions, building up on what you're saying.
Okay, I might probably wrap them two in one.
Oh,
Let
sure.
me first tell the following. The Angolan data protection law, as it is, does not requires DPOs to be
Okay.
established in a company.
Okay.
So, again, as I say, this is a 2011 data protection
Yeah,
law.
right. Yeah, yeah.
However, we submitted now a draft of the new legislation.
Right.
On this new legislation, we are now proposing, if it goes through the parliament the way we did submit it, because it's not in a discussion yet. If it gets approved as we submitted, now it will require the DPOs. But although the actual law does not require DPOs, we highly advise,
Okay.
especially the big companies, the systemic companies. We normally advise them, and we used to say, well, guys, you we highly advise you to have a DPO, because when they register, when they require the authorization from the authority, they need to submit contact details, uh, person of contact. And at this stage, sometimes we do ask whether this is just a contact or it is
Right.
a DPO.
Right.
So
Okay.
then other companies that, especially that those who had processes, infringement process with us, those who were fined, um, we also sometimes we do reduce the fines a lot, to be honest, because we understand, but under one condition. The condition is the company needs to compromise themselves that in such specific amount of time they were gonna change the privacy culture. They're gonna change the privacy culture. Um, whether they will introduce a DPO, implement rules of accessing the information, do the impact assessments. They need to. Oh Jesus God! Allow me. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I understand. You're in the office.
Sorry about
No,
that.
I understand. It's understandable.
Dito to. To nung webinar. Walang password. Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
You can never run away from your desk, Oscar. I mean, Pedro. I mean,
No worries.
yeah, sure.
Okay, so they need to. We advise, we highly
Right.
advise them to have a DPOs, and one of the things we do somehow, and this is another thing from the previous questions of awareness, we have every week, every Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, might be Wednesday or Thursday, we do have whatever we call the authority response. We call it APD response. It's like a
Okay.
authority answers. So it is a live
Okay.
session. It is a live session. Anyone can log in and they speak to us.
Oh, okay.
They speak to us. We have one of our colleagues on the other line, and explaining things about privacy. Companies, people, citizens, they log in. All our credentials are on our website, whether it's Wednesday or Thursday. from 10 to 12. It's like 2 hours live with the authority. So we help SMEs, we have big techs, we have citizens, people normal, just with very generic doubts on this kind of situation. And yes, a DPO needs to be prepared. It's the first point of contact. I used to say privacy is not about technology, guy. It's not about the lawyer. I used to say
Right,
privacy is everyone's.
right. Yeah.
And no one better than the DPO to help regulate, to be has a the catalytic things of that company. Say, okay, the DPO is gonna map the institution, is gonna map the kind of personal data it's being handled, and will advise on the access levels, will advise on all this best practice on how to protect the privacy. And then we have the lawyers and we have the IT guys to help to create that situation that everyone feels safe. Employers feel safe, employees feel safe, customers feel safe.
Yeah, so Pedro, you mentioned something interesting, and I was taking notes, and something that I'm also going to pass on to my superiors in Zimbabwe about having office hours where the authority responds. So maybe I'm just going to take a very quick poll. I want to know how many people from different jurisdictions do have something similar to that. You've got office hours as a DPO where you are just using them to drive awareness. Because I understand you do it from a authority perspective where you want organizations and individuals to call and ask and they have issues clarified. But then it's something interesting that I think as DPOs we should also indulge to do, whereby you set up a time where people can have office hours to be able to drive awareness. So we just set up a poll for those on the chat. Please just indicate. I just want to see how many people do that. While we move on to our another question. So, how do you think DPOs, Pedro, can effectively engage the regulators based on the office hour code that you just mentioned? What other, if for the DPOs in the room, how best are you going to advise them to be able to effectively engage the regulators in various countries? What if you're a DPO? What are you? How are you going to advise people? Or if you are going to leave the authority and work as a DPO somewhere, how would you effectively be engaging with the authorities in your own country?
Right, I'll give you the same things that we're planning. We haven't planned whatever we call it, a coffee with the regulators,
Okay.
right? That's the kind of sessions. That's the kind of sessions that the authority have creates to discuss from time to time with other regulators on, on matters, on privacy matters, because it's important for the other regulators not to see the data protection authority as some kind of super authority that reduce their authority. But at the end of the day, they are other department of regulators and they have the power of over those. But in the end, everyone process personal data. So
Right.
it's a good thing. So when you talk, you found the common ground and you found a common respect and you make the machine work. So the same issues must normally apply to, at the point of view, we don't have DPOs legally in the terms, but it's the same principle should apply. You should have like from time to time sessions with the DPOs. As I say, the session we have, for example, now is open every Thursday. It's for everyone, right? Thursday 10 to 12 is for everyone. Can log in and discuss. So uh, at the moment we understand this is for us. This is enough at
Mhm.
this stage for us to have live sections. But our authority also have something very innovative in here. We open our door for everyone. We don't have all those things like, oh no, you need an appointment, you need to come after 2 weeks time, 3 weeks time. No. Uh, we as the boards, sometimes we test our numbers, our reception numbers. We are out. We as the board members, we're out, and sometimes we test our reception numbers. We send, we we ring, and we try to figure out how long it's going to take to be picked up and how professional our people will pick up that call.
Wow. Okay.
That's
That's very nice.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's something we normally do. Uh, and We have our emails, public emails. Apart from our emails, we have our generic emails, and every correspondence that comes to that email need to follow the same way as the paperwork made for us to have access to information. And if an email comes to us and we see it was sent 5 days ago, our first question is, why is this only here now?
Right.
This makes our colleagues to be really interested in seeing every single message
Mhm.
and
Right.
submit them in. And then we have our portal, we call it our online desk, that people can get in touch with us anonymously or not. They can register or not. And we monitor all this communication. In the end, the DPOs, it's in a good sense when they are organized as the way I'm seeing here. When you have a network, when you have an association, it's easier to speak with the regulator. But if you are a single DPO and there is no network of DPOs in your region, for example, it's your concerns from the authority are always taken very serious because you are a DPO, especially when you identify yourself as a DPO from a certain institution or from a certain company. Your concerns reflect that company's concern.
Yeah, and interesting for you to note that 57% of the people in the webinar say that they do have office hours that they use to spread awareness, and 47 don't have. So I'm encouraging all DPOs just to follow through with the important insights that Pedro has been saying. So Pedro, I'm just going to go ahead and ask you the last question, and then I'm going to then open up some questions from the members in the audience, just in case some might want to have a question that they have. So you talked about NATPA being an organization whereby the DPAs authorities can join and be able to uh, align or standardize the way they operate and to collaborate on certain issues. And it is the same reason why we came up with the DPO African Network, not for the regulators, but for the DPO to have a network where they can network, where they can socialize, or where they can even ask questions and where they can help them doing their work. Do you think such an association can help DPOs and be able to achieve their goals, or to be able, do you think to help DPOs in doing effectively doing their job, having networks like this network, or what do you think, what more could be done by the DPOs themselves to be able to, effectively do their job, since it's almost a very, like what you said, you had a law in 2011 but the other came in 2019. So when we go out there in Zimbabwe, people almost think this is a new phenomenon, and you tell them no, it's not a new phenomenon, but you are used to say to people, don't get into my property. You don't know how to say to people, don't get into my personal space in terms of personal information. So I don't know, just take that away as your last question, Pedro.
Well, let me say that um, the African Network of Data Protection Authorities, it's a very important organization in terms as a we as authority, we see that as a platform for exchanging information. And a DPO network, the idea of a DPO network on this perspective is a tool that would benefit a lot from such kind of networks, not only the African, but any other authority network. And if this project really goes accordingly, it would be interesting requesting to join the network as observer. That will be an interesting point of view, because that will reflect, that will bring to the network of authorities what are the DPO's concerns on that. We can have it, we can take it when it's related to the DPOs of our region, right? And it can help to every authority. But if there is a more consensual platform that the majority can join and bring up the issues and help the authorities better do them jobs, I think this is a win-win collaboration. Um, well, there is no such a thing. Because there are two different things. One is the data protection authorities, another is a network of DPOs. Actually, we have a very good relationship with the network, the DPOs network from Brazil. We have a fantastic relationship with them, and we learned a lot from them as well, because they call themselves Apedados. That's like the network of DPOs from Brazil. Um, my experience on this is that the authority learns a lot from the DPOs, because the DPOs are the first and the main point of contact that can bring you every issues that the companies normally they have, and it actually make our work very easy. Instead
Right.
of we keep chasing who does this and who doesn't do this, we just speak with the DPO, and the DPO can easily identify, can easily bring us the answer, and we can easily advise them on how to correct issues. Well, don't know whether I miss anything on that question.
Well, thank you so much, Pedro. You've been very wonderful, and thank you so much for single-handedly handling the panel. I know with our other regulators, sometimes our offices are very very busy, and I just want to say thank you so much for mentioning about the DPO network from Brazil. Would want to connect with them and learn from them, because the whole aspect behind the network is for us to provide a learning platform for other DPOs and for us to learn from other people. Although this is an African initiative, we also want this to be where we also learn from other parts of the world as well. So for the DPOs, I now turn over to you to put your question in the chat box, and then I'll read them to Pedro for those who might have some questions for us or for him to answer. But just to let you know that the DPOs, the network was formed for you. We are there. We want to provide a platform where we be a collaborative voice, we voice the concerns, and where we want to be able to represent you on larger platforms. Like Pedro, you mentioned something about the NATPA. It we also did apply for male observer status for to the NATPA, and we are here from them. So maybe the next time you're in the NATPA meeting, please, if you are able to whisper to their ears and tell them that the Deep Africa Network is patiently waiting by the door to just get in and sit on the table as an observer would be very good. So our one question for you, Pedro, from Melissa Chasi. She's from Zimbabwe and a very good friend of mine. She says, how do you handle breach notifications from data handlers? For us as controllers, for Angola it's handlers, isn't it? So how do you handle breach notifications? How do you want to be notified of a breach if there's a breach in another country? I think that's the only question that we have for now. So I'll give it over to you to answer if we do no questions. Then I'll prepare for Amaka to come on stage so that you can conclude the webinar.
Well done, Alan. Well, I would say first thing first, about the network, all you have to do, I think, is get in touch with Secretariat and express your interest as a network. If they recognize the network as a network that exists, I don't think there will be any issues for them to answer this. About the question, how do we handle the notifications? It's very easy. They can do it through our portal, to our online desking, and it normally let me tell you, at the beginning it was giving us a massive headache, because we had a backlog of more than 6 months. I think we had a backlog of a year, because we were only 20 something employees in total, and we only had something like uh, three lawyers and 4 or 5 engineers, and We had to deal with everything, and it wasn't easy. So we innovate, and as I say, as we created around 2019, then we had the COVID-19. That was a major challenge for us. So we did put an online presence. So through our online desk, companies can handle all the notifications to whatever CCTV, and more complex um, issues that can, and we access them, and we try to solve this in within a week, the most, unless there is something we need to clarify. So yes.
All right, and then the other question that came from Larima Bena, it said that does the Angolan law allow DPOs from outside Angola to offer services to in Angola?
Oh well, I think it all depends on the company.
Right,
It doesn't depend on the at the moment, as I say, our law doesn't even oblige you to have a DPO.
right,
We highly recommend for you to have a DPO. So it all depends on the company. If the company is free to say, okay, I have appointed this firm, I have appointed this person based on this jurisdiction, and to be our DPO. Of course, there we have probably the issues if there is data transfer or not. Um but the main point is here, it is all under the company descriptions to decide who is going to answer to the regulator as the DPO, because at the end they still their responsibility, the company responsibility.
right. All right, Pedro, thank you so much for joining us today. I'll allow you to tell us anything important you would want to show the
Alan,
DPOs
just
or
one thing. Sorry, just one
yeah,
thing.
sure, sure. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
About the notifications, I realized she mentioned about the data breach notifications, right? Um, I thought the notification to authorize. Now I've seen the post, Melissa.
Right,
She mentioned specific data breach. Yeah, data breach notifications. Data breach notification can be handled in any of the few ways we have. Can be by email telling us exactly this happened. Normally we allow the soonest as possible, 72 hours, or soon it's possible for you to notify, because we understand sometimes companies are more worried about stopping it rather than notifying the regulator. So it can be by email, can be sent an office to our address. And we even had the case that someone just rang me and say, well, we know this is happening, we are having this issue, we are trying to solve the problem. I said, okay, yes, but please be aware, it doesn't count as a notification. Drop me an email ASAP, and that might help you, give you more time for you to work on the issues. Yeah.
all right. So I think you just saw that the two questions. One is saying, how do you enforce data protection? What penalties do you impose? I think you touched on that when you talked about
Mhm.
60,000 United States dollars being the least minimum for individuals, and 180,000 being for data handlers. And then Innocent also asked to say that, do you see citizens engaging directly with the regulators?
Yes, of course. Do we have citizens engaging with us, especially on that program that I say that we have online every Thursday, is via platform Zoom. All our credentials are on site. Citizens can log in and engage with us. Our awareness program that goes through the radios, we normally mentions our contact numbers, email, and telephone numbers that can also be used. And to be honest, the citizens' concerns take priority whenever we are dealing with every situation, because we understand we are here to serve the citizens.
Right.
Um, their concerns, their queries, uh, I would say whatever the worries, our main priorities. And how do we enforce it exactly? That's as I said before. Um, of course, we look into every aspect. We look into everything. Did you do enough to protect uh, your data. If the regulator realize you've done more than enough, you don't, you are not fine. Well, of course, we do understand everyone, for example, can be hacked. But we have cases that whenever our inspectors go and try to have a look into this, for example, they realize that they're still not having, let's say, let's give an example. We have places we went and we found them using Windows XP, just to give you an idea.
Right. Right.
So how do you expect the regulator to be happy with you when you're still using Windows XP? I talk about Windows
Mm.
XP, like you have firewall without the latest updates, you have VMs without the updates, you
Right.
know, all these situations that as a regulator think, guys, you didn't take not even the basic steps to protect your data. So in this case, it's a straight penalty.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Pedro. I'll allow you to share your parting words with us, and then I'll allow Miss Amaka to come on stage with some notifications. But thank you so much for agreeing to do this, and thank you so much for meeting with me again after meeting with you in Seoul, in Korea. It was so much lovely to see you again. So, any parting words for us, Pedro, especially advice to the DPOs who are practicing in Zimbabwe?
Right, Alan.
So, in the African context, sorry.
First, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be part of one of your webinar panels. It is always our pleasure, and I encourage you to do your best for the network to grow. As you approached me in Korea, I say yes, of course, we are interested. We understand we work for government, and as government employees we have to obey to a certain rules, um, because sometimes it is difficult to separate our opinion from our institution's opinion. We try to do our best sometimes. I'm more than happy to help you, sometimes not even in the vest of a regulator, just as a Pedro, to help you discuss some topics, and that's fine. For the DPOs, this is a very challenging um, responsibility. It requires permanent updates, especially now we are talking about AI, we are talking about new technology, we are talking about kids of Generation Z. The challenge, even for us regulators, increases. For the DPOs, is of course not the least. Um, as a regulator, Alan, this is one thing that really it's important for you to reflect upon. Uh, has been engaged with the regulator. I don't know how this works with the network of DPOs, because you cannot be a referee and the player in here. It's just something you need to reflect upon. Uh, but we are here to help, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pedro. Over to you, Amaka.
Thank you so much, Pedro. This has been very insightful. I have laughed, I have learned, in this session. First time hearing data as an atomic bomb, and trust me, I will be using that because we need to have a balanced perspective where we have the benefit, we're also aware of the challenges. And this is something as DPOs we should lead with, because one of the things I encourage DPOs is to tell stories because they connect and they bring and they pull leadership in. So thank you so much for doing this and exposing us to what is happening in Angola. We have also seen that there are some nuggets that you have dropped beyond learning at a regulatory level. As DPOs, I always like to say we are internal regulators for our organization. So take all of that nugget, apply it to your organization. And so to all DPOs present today, I want to say thank you for being here, investing this time with us, learning, sharing, and connecting together. I also want to leave you with this thought. Do not see DPO African Network just as a resource. Please see us as a partner. We want to grow and we want to excel with you. Paulo has rightfully mentioned this is a learning journey and we need to continually learn. The regulators are figuring it out. We also cannot afford to be falling behind because at the end of the day, it's not about compliance alone, it's about building trust. And when I talk about trust, it's trust for our fellow citizens. We're doing this for our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents who have no idea or interest in learning in this space. So we cannot put the onus on them to go through this learning curve. Our job is to really advocate and do the needful. And so with that being said, some incredible opportunities that is out there. First thing Paulo mentioned, AI. Our AI course is dropping tomorrow. And we announced this a month ago where we had 50% off. So if you want to take advantage of that, go into our store where we have all of our courses and take advantage of that. I like to see this beyond a community, to see this as a campus where we not only connect with each other, but we learn and we grow. Secondly, I'd also want to encourage all of you to join our meetup session every last Monday of the month. During the meetup session, we take practical scenarios like what Paulo has mentioned, going to buy a CCTV and being asked for his phone number. You may have experienced this in your everyday life. We want to talk about it. But beyond that, we want to ask ourselves, if I were a DPO in that organization, what would I do differently? We've seen earlier on that Vusi had mentioned he's working on a ROPA, and Izuna from Nigeria has said, let's connect and collaborate on that. So this is a place where we can ask questions and partner together. One last thing, if you are from Algeria in the call, I want you to reach out to us, info@dpoafrica.net, because we just received a request for a consultant to do an engagement. And this is why we exist, for opportunities to share, because at the end of the day, for us to be sustainable, we want to be sure that when you learn, you can deploy your learning. So if you are from Algeria or you know someone from Algeria, please let us know, info@dpoafrica.net. And finally, before we wrap up, like I mentioned in the beginning, we are at the end of the year. Two things: if you are interested in coaching, especially for DPOs who are currently practicing, send us an email and we would have a program for you. Also, those interested in breaking in to the field, we would also curate a program for you. If you are interested in training your organization, corporate training, again, all road leads to our email and we will take the conversation from that. Without much ado, I want to let you all be on your way and doing the amazing work that you're doing. Paulo, Pedro, again, from my heart, I want to say thank you. It's just so amazing to see the incredible work happening in all corners of Africa. And like you mentioned, DPOs in Brazil, we want to be that partner for our DPOs. We also bridge the gap with the authorities, because where there's a disconnect, all of our efforts falls apart. But we want to ensure that we are that glue. But I'll take your word for it. We can't be a player and a referee. So let's talk about that offline. And from me to all of you, bye for now and see you again, same time next month, the third Wednesday of next month. Bye and thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Amaka. Thanks a lot. You've been fantastic.
Thank you.
And
Sure.
see you again.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.